There is a popular phrase that a jack of all trades is a master of none. But what many people don't know is that the full phrase is, a jack of all trades is a master of none, but oftentimes better than a master of one. Contrary to popular belief, this quote is actually complimenting jacks of all trades. You're probably wondering where I'm going with this. When it comes to real estate investing, there are so many different ways to make money. And I think it's to an investor's advantage to know the many different ways to make money so that as opportunities present themselves, one can capitalize on those opportunities. So in today's video, I'm going to be talking about 10 different ways to make money investing in real estate. And I'm gonna do it in less than 10 minutes. So let's get right into it. P.S. I'm going to save my favorite strategy for last. What's up everyone, and welcome to Real Talk with Olamide, where we are going to be talking about all things real estate. My name is Olamide for those who don't know me, and I am a real estate investor as well as a licensed realtor. Let's start with buying and holding long-term rentals. This is when you buy an investment property with the intent to hold it for a long period of time. You put a tenant in there and you charge them rent. There are numerous benefits to this. One, appreciation. Over time, generally, prices and the value of homes increase, so your equity is increasing. Cash flow, which is essentially your rent minus your expenses. When you charge more rent than the expenses are going out of your pocket each month, including the mortgage, then you're putting cash in your pocket each month. Next, tax advantages. The government literally rewards people that buy and hold real estate. Why? Because if the investors don't do it, then the government is going to have to do it, and the government does not want to have to provide housing. There are some risks, like having to deal with tenants, toilets, and termites. You have to be a landlord, and sometimes being a landlord can be hard. It's definitely doable. And some people just get a property manager. But even if you go that route, you still might have to deal with evictions if people don't pay. You may have to deal with unexpected repairs. So all in all, it can be tough. But ultimately, there are many millionaires that are made using this strategy. I would just advise that if you choose to go this strategy, make sure that you have some capital reserves so that you can withstand some of the ups and downs when it comes to buying and holding real estate. Next, we have house hacking. This is where you live in a property as your primary residence and then you rent out a portion of the property to tenants. This could be a stranger, your friends, your family, your preference, your choice. It could be a single family home or a multifamily. But really the cool thing here is that you are technically a landlord, but it's easier to be a landlord because you actually live in the property, and also you get a lot of the same benefits as the long-term rentals that we mentioned earlier. Now let's talk about Airbnb, and there are two ways to go about it. You can either buy the property or you can rent a rented property. So let's talk about buying the property first. This is essentially when you buy a property with the intent to hold it for a long period of time, similar to what we first talked about with buy and hold rentals, but instead of renting it to a long-term tenant, you actually do a short-term rental. So you rent it for maybe a day or two or however many days you want to rent it, and you can also charge a premium price because it is for a shorter period of time. On the other hand, there's rental arbitrage, and this could be a home or an apartment where essentially you have a lease, but you're essentially doing short-term rentals on your lease, on your property, and you're able to make money that way. And so there are different advantages depending on which strategy you end up going with, but if you're doing more so the owning of the property, a lot of the same advantages that came with doing the buy and hold that we mentioned earlier still apply. But if you're doing short term, it's a lot less risk because you don't actually own the property, but you don't get as many of the benefits. Rental arbitrage regulation varies by location, so make sure you do your research before you get started. Number 4, we have wholesaling, and this is a popular strategy for new beginner investors. And this is when you identify a property, you get it under contract, and you essentially sell your option to buy that property to another investor. So you don't buy the property, but you're making money because you're essentially linking buyers and sellers and making money that way. This is a low risk strategy, and there's also not really capital needed unless you're marketing to find sellers and buyers. So it's a great way for people to get started. And honestly, every investor should know how to wholesale property because a lot of times you're going to come against property or you're going to see properties that you just don't want to buy, but you can make money by connecting it to someone else that really wants to buy that property. It's low risk, but you want to make sure that you draw up your contract properly so that if you don't end up finding a buyer, then you can actually get out of that contract. Number 5, wholetailing. And this sounds a lot like wholesaling, but I said wholetailing. wholetailing. And in this strategy, you actually have to buy the property, but you make minimal to no repairs and then you can sell it. So this is a great strategy for people that have the capital or know how to buy properties with little to no capital, and they make a little bit more money because they take on a little bit more risk and can actually sell the property to an end buyer. Now we have number 6, which is the fix and flip strategy. This is a lot like wholetailing, except you actually have to repair the property. So you buy the property, fix it up, and then you sell it. There's some risk here. One, holding risk. Let's just say you used a hard money loan with a high interest rate to go ahead and buy the property. The longer that you hold the property, it means the less your profit is going to be. Also, there's rehab risk. A lot of times, random things pop up when you're repairing a property. Some of the things you may not have considered when you first actually bought the property. And so you really want to make sure that you are experienced if you are going to get into this strategy. If you are a new investor, I would suggest maybe partnering with someone instead of taking it on yourself. And that actually leads me to the next strategy, which is partnership. And this is when you work with another investor or multiple investors to buy a property. It's a great way for beginners because you get to learn from someone else that has experience. You either have to bring the property to the table, the money to the table, or some experience to the table. But if you're sharing the risk, you're probably also sharing the profit. But as I always like to say, having a percentage of something is better than having a percentage of nothing. Number 8, we have private money lending. And this is essentially when you are your own bank. You are essentially acting like a Bank of America or Wells Fargo on the deal. This is a great strategy for investors that have access to capital or capital themselves. And they don't want to really be too hands-on, but they want more of a passive investment. Essentially what you do is that you fund a deal. If an investor brings a deal to you and they say, hey, I need X amount of money, you give it to them. But you can secure your deal and secure your investment with a deed of trust or a mortgage. So that's a great thing. There is some risk here. And the risk is essentially if your investor that you borrowed money to doesn't pay you back, you might have to foreclose on them, which is never fun. But if they actually have a good deal, then you still get to own the property. You may just have to either hire someone to help you fix it up, partner with someone if you don't want to do it. But all in all, it's a good deal. Number 9, we have short sales. And this is essentially when a seller is behind on their mortgage. The bank might want to foreclose, but what you can do as an investor is that with the seller's consent, you can negotiate with the bank and actually buy the property for less than what is owed to the bank. So a lot of times a realtor is going to be needed to be involved in this transaction, but it's a great strategy because you're able to buy a property at a discounted price. In fact, this strategy is very popular during times of distress, and many people made a fortune using this strategy in the last housing crash. Last but definitely not the least, we have owner financing, and this is my favorite strategy. Let me set the stage. Let's just say banks stop lending, interest rates go up, and people can't pay their mortgage. In this case, investors have to have a very non-traditional way to buy properties. People such as Robert Kiyosaki made a fortune using this strategy in the last housing crash. Essentially what happens is if someone is behind on their mortgage, you have to reinstate their mortgage, so pay whatever they owe to the bank, and then you take over their loans and you make the payments on their behalf for the rest of the mortgage period. So for example, if someone owes $500 a month to a Wells Fargo, you keep the loan in their name. They transfer you the deed, so now you own the property, but now you have to pay that $500 instead of them, but the loan remains in their name. This is a very powerful strategy, and this is also known as the no money down or little money down strategy that many investors use to acquire properties in a very creative way. There is some risk here, and this comes in something called the due on sale clause. Technically, once that person sells the property to you as the investor, technically the bank has the ability to go ahead and call the mortgage due, but many times they don't do it. But if you are using this strategy, you have to be aware that this could be possible, but when done right, this rarely ever happens. I am not an attorney, a CPA, or a financial planner. This is only for educational purposes, so make sure that you consult the right person if you want to make any moves. There you have it, folks. And that was 10 different strategies to make money in real estate, all under 10 minutes. Thank you for tuning in to Real Talk with Olamide, where we talk about all things real estate. Make sure that you like this video. Make sure that you hit that subscribe button and feel free to leave a comment. All right, y'all, I got to get out of here, but I will talk to you soon. Take care and have a great day.